I'll never forget the look on my father's face when I handed him the termination papers for his own company, the same company where he'd called me a hopeless disappointment for 15 years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The morning started like any other in the Mitchell household, with disappointment served alongside breakfast. I sat at the kitchen table, stirring my coffee while my mother's disapproving gaze burned into me from across the room. "Emily, are you really wearing that to another job interview?" She sighed, gesturing at my carefully pressed blazer. "No wonder you can't keep a job for more than 6 months." I forced a smile, the same one I'd perfected over 28 years of never quite measuring up. "Actually, Mom, I have a meeting with a potential client today." My father lowered his newspaper, his eyebrows raised in mock surprise. "Client? For what? That little hobby of yours? Emily, when are you going to grow up and get a real career?" That little hobby was my digital marketing consultancy, which I'd started after being fired from my third corporate job in 2 years. What my parents didn't know was that my hobby had grown into a thriving business with 30 employees and 7-figure annual revenue. But I'd learned long ago that sharing my successes with them only led to more criticism. My brother Daniel sauntered into the kitchen, still wearing yesterday's clothes and reeking of alcohol. At 32, he was the golden child who could do no wrong, despite showing up hungover to his executive position at Mitchell Manufacturing, the family business our grandfather had built from nothing. "Morning, superstar," Dad beamed at Daniel, pushing the sports section toward him. "Great job on that Henderson account yesterday. Pure genius." I happened to know that Daniel had botched the Henderson presentation so badly that the client had threatened to pull their business. But in the Mitchell family hierarchy, Daniel's failures were reframed as learning experiences, while mine were character flaws. "Thanks, Dad," Daniel smirked, shooting me a condescending look. Maybe someday Emily will understand what real business looks like. I bit my tongue, remembering the countless nights I'd spent studying business strategy, financial, modeling, and market analysis while Daniel partied his way through college on our parents' dime. I'd graduated summa cum laude with a double major in business and computer science, but my parents had been too busy celebrating Daniel's C-average graduation to attend my ceremony. "Speaking of real business," Mom chimed in, "your Aunt Margaret called yesterday. Her daughter Jessica just made partner at her law firm, 26 years old. Isn't that wonderful?" The unspoken comparison hung in the air like smoke. Why couldn't I be more like Jessica? Or Daniel? Or literally anyone else? I stood up, smoothing my blazer. "I should get going. Big day ahead." "Try not to embarrass yourself," Dad called after me. "And maybe consider that receptionist position at Mitchell Manufacturing. It's about time you contributed something to this family." As I walked to my car, I reflected on the irony. Mitchell Manufacturing, the company my grandfather had built with his bare hands, was hemorrhaging money under my father's leadership and Daniel's incompetence. They'd rejected every suggestion I'd made to modernize operations, dismissing my MIT-educated insights as naive and impractical. What they didn't know was that I'd been quietly buying up their debt through a series of shell companies. Every failed contract, every missed payment, every financial misstep had brought me closer to my goal. Today's meeting wasn't with a client. It was with my investment team to finalize the acquisition strategy. I drove to my office in the city's financial district, a sleek space on the 20th floor that none of my family had ever seen. My assistant, Marcus, greeted me with a knowing smile. "The board meeting is set for 10 a.m., he said, handing me a folder. "All the documentation is ready. Are you sure about this, Emily?" I nodded, feeling a mixture of anticipation and sadness. It's the only way to save the company, and maybe my family, even if they'll hate me for it. The meeting went exactly as planned. My team had done their homework, and within 2 hours, we'd finalized the hostile takeover of Mitchell Manufacturing. The company my grandfather had built, the one my father had nearly destroyed, was now mine. As I signed the final papers, I thought about all the times my parents had called me a failure. The birthday parties they'd missed because they were busy, with Daniel's sports events, the graduation they'd skipped, the business advice they'd ignored, the constant comparisons to more successful relatives. "What's your first move as CEO?" Marcus asked. I looked out the window at the city skyline, remembering my grandfather's words before he died. "Emily, you have the mind for this business. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." "First, we audit everything," I replied. "Then, we restructure. And then—" I paused, thinking of Daniel's executive salary for a job he barely showed up for. "We make some personnel changes." My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Don't forget, family dinner tonight. Try to be on time for once. And please wear something decent." I smiled, knowing that tonight's dinner would be the last one where they'd look at me as the family. Disappointment. Tomorrow morning, they'd receive the registered letters informing them of the change in ownership. The real shock would come when they realized their failure of a daughter had been their silent savior all along, and that salvation would come with conditions they never saw coming. As I left the office, I stopped by my grandfather's portrait in the lobby. "I'm ready, Grandpa," I whispered. "Time to show them what a real Mitchell can do." Little did my family know that their constant dismissal had forged me into exactly what the company needed: a leader who understood both tradition and innovation, someone who'd learned to build empires in silence while others wasted their inheritance on ego and appearances. The next family dinner would be very different indeed. The drive to my parents' house that evening gave me time to reflect on how we'd arrived at this point. 28 years of being the family disappointment hadn't happened overnight. It was a carefully cultivated garden of diminished expectations and overlooked achievements. My earliest memory of feeling less than was my 7th birthday party. While other children celebrated with friends and cake, I sat alone in our living room, watching through the window as my parents cheered Daniel at his Little League game. They'd promised to be back in time for my party, but 3 hours later, the untouched cake still sat on the dining room table, candles unlit. "Sorry, sweetheart," Mom had said when they finally returned, Daniel's trophy gleaming in his hands. "The game went into extra innings. You understand, right?" I understood perfectly. I understood that Daniel's achievements, no matter how small, would always eclipse my existence. School became my refuge. While Daniel coasted on charm and our family name, I discovered I had a gift for numbers and strategy. By 5th grade, I was helping my teacher balance the class budget for field trips. By 8th grade, I'd created a small business selling custom study guides to classmates, earning enough to buy my own computer when my parents said they couldn't afford one for me, despite purchasing a top-of-the-line gaming system for Daniel. That same Christmas. High school marked the widening of the chasm between their expectations and my reality. Daniel, captain of the football team and homecoming king, barely maintained a C average, but was celebrated as well-rounded and socially gifted. Meanwhile, I graduated as valedictorian, president of the business club, and with early acceptance to MIT, achievements that earned me a pat on the head and a reminder that book smarts don't translate to the real world. The real turning point came during my grandfather's last summer. While my parents vacationed in Europe with Daniel, I spent 3 months at Grandpa Joe's side, learning everything about Mitchell Manufacturing. He'd built the company from a small machine shop into a regional powerhouse, and unlike my parents, he saw something in me. "Emily," he'd said one evening as we reviewed quarterly reports, "you have the Mitchell mind for business. Your father, he inherited the company, but you inherited the spirit." Those words became my North Star. When Grandpa Joe passed away, that fall, he left me something far more valuable than money: He left me his private journals detailing every business decision, every mistake, every triumph. While my parents focused on the material inheritance, I absorbed his wisdom. College was where I truly came into my own. Free from my family's shadow, I excelled at MIT, double majoring in business and computer science. I interned at top tech firms, built a network of mentors, and developed the digital transformation strategies that would later save companies from obsolescence. My parents attended none of my presentations, missed my graduation, and dismissed my honors as participation. Trophies for nerds. After graduation, I made the mistake of trying to prove myself through traditional channels. I joined prestigious firms, climbed corporate ladders, and accumulated impressive titles. But I also learned a harsh truth. In male-dominated boardrooms, being right wasn't enough. Being brilliant wasn't enough. You had to play politics, stroke egos, and often watch less qualified men take credit for your ideas. Each failure, as my parents called my job changes, was actually a strategic move. I was learning, adapting, gathering intelligence on different industries. When I was fired from my third corporate job for lacking leadership presence, code, for not laughing at the CEO's sexist jokes, I realized I'd never succeed by playing their game. That's when I started Mitchell Digital Solutions, though I kept the Mitchell name hidden behind a corporate veil. Starting with freelance consulting, I built a team of brilliant misfits, women who'd been passed over for promotions, minorities who'd hit glass ceilings, and young talents dismissed by traditional firms. Together, we revolutionized digital marketing strategies for mid-sized manufacturers. Within 18 months, we were profitable. Within 3 years, we were turning away clients. While my parents lamented my inability to hold down a real job, I was building an empire. I lived modestly, reinvesting everything into the business, and quietly studying Mitchell Manufacturing's public records. The company's decline was painful to watch. Dad, who'd inherited a thriving business, made one poor decision after another. He resisted digital transformation, alienated long-time clients with his antiquated approaches, and promoted based on golf handicaps rather than merit. Daniel, installed as executive vice president straight out of college, treated the position like a fraternity social chair, all parties and no substance. I tried to help. 3 times I'd approached Dad with modernization proposals, offering my services at no cost. 3 times he'd laughed in my face. "Stick to your Instagram filters, Emily. Leave real business to the men." So I changed tactics. Through a network of shell companies, I began buying Mitchell Manufacturing's debt. Every bank loan they defaulted on, every vendor payment they missed, every financial obligation they failed to meet, I acquired it all. It wasn't revenge, it was preservation. I was building a life raft while they drilled holes in their ship. The irony wasn't lost on me. While my parents boasted about Daniel's business acumen at country club dinners, their golden child was hemorrhaging money through expense account abuse and failed vanity projects. Meanwhile, their failure daughter was quietly positioning herself to save the family legacy. As I pulled into my parents' driveway that evening, I saw Daniel's Porsche, purchased with his inflated executive bonus, while the factory workers hadn't seen raises in 3 years. Mom's Mercedes sat beside it, a symbol of the lifestyle they maintained while the company crumbled. I parked my modest Honda, another decision that invited ridicule, and took a deep breath. Inside that house, they were preparing for another evening of subtle jabs and outright dismissals. They had no idea that their world was about to change forever. Tomorrow, they would wake up to a new reality. The daughter they'd written off as a failure would be their boss. The company they'd mismanaged would be under new leadership. And the golden child they'd enabled would face his first real accountability. As I walked to the front door, I whispered a promise to the evening air. "This isn't about revenge, Grandpa Joe. It's about legacy. It's about showing them that real strength, grows in silence, and true leaders rise not from privilege, but from perseverance. The porch light flickered on, and I straightened my shoulders. One more family dinner as the disappointment. Tomorrow, everything would change. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Dinner began with its usual script. Mom served her signature pot roast while Dad held court at the head of the table, regaling us with stories about Daniel's latest triumph at Mitchell Manufacturing. I listened quietly, cutting my meat with precise movements, waiting for the moment that would change everything. And then Daniel told the board, "Gentlemen, the future is now." Dad boomed, slapping the table for emphasis. Brilliant, simply brilliant. I knew the real story. Daniel's presentation to the board had been a disaster. He'd arrived 40 minutes late, unprepared, and reeking of last night's whiskey. The board members, loyal to my grandfather's memory, had politely endured the embarrassment while privately expressing their concerns to shareholders. "That's wonderful, Daniel," Mom cooed, refilling his wine glass for the third time. "You're such a natural leader." Daniel smirked at me across the table. "Some people are just born for business, right, Em? Others are better suited for, what is it you do again? Social media stuff?" Before I could respond, Dad's phone rang. His face paled as he listened to the caller. "What do you mean, emergency board meeting? Tomorrow morning?" He shot a panicked glance at Daniel. "The Koreans are pulling out? But that's 40% of our revenue." The room fell silent. Even Daniel seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. The Korean contract had been Mitchell Manufacturing's lifeline, secured by my grandfather 20 years ago, and renewed annually, until now. Dad ended the call, his hands shaking. "They're citing lack of technological integration and failure to meet modern manufacturing standards." He glared at me accusingly. "This is what happens when people fill their heads with all this digital nonsense. Real business is about relationships." I set down my fork carefully. "Real business is about delivering value, Dad. When was the last time you updated the production line? Invested in automation? Trained your workforce in new technologies?" "Don't lecture me about business, young lady," he snapped. "What would you know about running a company?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. For years I'd bitten my tongue, swallowed my pride, and played the role of the family failure. But something snapped inside me at that moment. Perhaps it was the desperation in his voice, or the realization that my grandfather's legacy was truly at risk. "I know that Mitchell Manufacturing has been operating at a loss for 3 consecutive quarters," I said calmly. "I know that your debt-to-equity ratio has tripled in the past year. I know that employee turnover is at an all-time high, and your biggest clients are actively seeking alternative suppliers." The room went deathly quiet. Daniel's smugness evaporated, replaced by confusion. Mom's fork clattered onto her plate. "How could you possibly know that?" Dad demanded, his face reddening. "Because unlike you, I actually pay attention to the business Grandpa built." I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. "This is a comprehensive analysis of Mitchell Manufacturing's current position. Page 3 outlines how implementing digital transformation could have saved the Korean contract. Page 7 details the automation upgrades that your competitors completed 2 years ago. Page 12 shows how proper workforce training could have increased productivity by 30%. Dad's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. "Where did you get this?" "I created it, just like I created the proposal that could have saved the Henderson account last month and the modernization plan that would have prevented the Lambert Industries defection." I stood up, my voice steady. "Every time I tried to help, you dismissed me as naive. Every solution I offered, you mocked as playing businesswoman. Well, congratulations. Your refusal to listen has brought Mitchell Manufacturing to the brink of bankruptcy. Bankruptcy? Mom gasped. Richard, you said everything was fine. Daniel finally found his voice. This is ridiculous. Em's just trying to make herself look important. Dad, tell her she's wrong. But Dad couldn't. He stared at the documents, the color draining from his face as the truth sank in. The Emperor had no clothes, and his empire was crumbling. There's more, I continued, feeling strangely calm. Tomorrow's emergency board meeting isn't just about the Korean contract. It's about the future of Mitchell Manufacturing. The board has lost confidence in current leadership. That's impossible, Dad blustered. I'm the CEO. The board answers to me. The board answers to the shareholders, I corrected, and as of 5 p.m. today, the majority shareholder is Meridian Holdings. Meridian Holdings? Daniel scoffed. Never heard of them. You wouldn't have, I replied, allowing myself a small smile. It's a holding company I established 18 months ago. We've been quietly acquiring Mitchell Manufacturing's debt and buying shares from dissatisfied investors. As of this afternoon, Meridian Holdings controls 52% of Mitchell Manufacturing. The silence that followed was absolute. Mom's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror. Daniel's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But it was Dad's reaction that struck me most. The mighty Richard Mitchell, who'd spent decades diminishing me, looked utterly defeated. You? He whispered. You're behind Meridian Holdings? Me, I confirmed. The failure, the disappointment, the daughter who couldn't hold down a real job. While you were busy celebrating Daniel's mediocrity and mocking my little hobby, I was building a digital consulting empire. My Instagram filters have transformed 12 manufacturing companies in the past 3 years, generating over $200 million in additional revenue for my clients. Mom found her voice. But why? Why would you do this to your own family? I didn't do this to you, I said softly. I did this for Grandpa Joe, for the workers who depend on Mitchell Manufacturing for their livelihoods, for the legacy that you and Daniel were destroying through arrogance and incompetence. I gathered my things, preparing to leave. The board meeting tomorrow will formally announce the change in ownership. I'll be appointed as interim CEO, effective immediately. Daniel, your position will be eliminated as part of the restructuring. Dad, you'll be offered an advisory role if you can demonstrate value beyond your last name. As I reached the door, Dad's voice stopped me. Emily, wait, we can discuss this, work something out. I turned back, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time, not as the towering authority figure of my childhood, but as a man confronted with the consequences of his own prejudices. We could have discussed this years ago, I replied. When I came to you with modernization plans, when I offered to help for free, when I begged you to see beyond your bias and recognize that your daughter might actually know something about business. But you chose to see me as a failure, so I had no choice but to succeed in silence. The last thing I saw as I left was Daniel's stunned face and Mom's tears. The family disappointment had just become the family savior, though salvation would come at a price they never imagined. As I drove home that night, I felt no triumph, only a quiet resolve. Tomorrow would begin the real work, saving Mitchell Manufacturing, honoring my grandfather's legacy, and proving that true leadership isn't about titles or gender, but about vision, preparation, and the courage to act when others won't. The failure had become the future, and the future started tomorrow. The morning of the board meeting arrived with unseasonable frost, as if nature itself recognized the chill that would sweep through Mitchell Manufacturing. I arrived at the building at 6 a.m., 2 hours before the scheduled meeting, wanting to walk through my grandfather's factory one last time before everything changed. The security guard, Tom, who'd worked there for 30 years, did a double take when he saw me. "Miss Emily? Haven't seen you here since you were knee-high to a grasshopper, following your grandpa around." "Good morning, Tom," I smiled, signing in. "I'm here for the board meeting." He nodded slowly, studying my face. "Heard rumors about big changes coming. Your grandpa always said you had the head for this business. Guess we'll see if he was right." As I walked through the silent factory floor, memories flooded back. Grandpa Joe teaching me about quality control, explaining supply chains, showing me how to read financial statements. The machinery stood idle, another sign of the company's decline. In Grandpa's day, these machines ran 18 hours a day. I made my way to the executive suite, where I found Margaret Chen, the company's long-serving CFO, already at her desk. She looked up, surprise evident on her face. "Emily? What are you doing here so early?" "Hello, Margaret. I wanted to review the latest financials before the meeting." She hesitated, clearly torn between loyalty to my father and her fiduciary duty. "I'm not sure I can share those with you." "As majority shareholder of Mitchell Manufacturing through Meridian Holdings, I believe I'm entitled to full access," I said gently. Margaret's eyes widened. "Your Meridian Holdings? But how? When?" "I've been preparing for this day for 18 months, I replied, settling into a chair across from her desk. "Now, about those financials?" For the next hour, Margaret walked me through the brutal reality of Mitchell Manufacturing's position. The situation was even worse than my research had indicated. Hidden losses, creative accounting to mask declining. Revenues and a web of personal loans taken out by my father against company assets. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. Margaret's shoulders slumped. "I tried, multiple times. Your father wouldn't listen, and Daniel. Well, Daniel doesn't understand enough to care. I've been looking for another job for 6 months. Stay," I said firmly. "I need people like you, people who care about this company and understand its real value." By 7:30, other board members began arriving. I greeted each one professionally, noting their surprised reactions. At 7:55, my father and Daniel burst through the doors, both looking disheveled and angry. "This is absurd," Dad bellowed, pointing at me. "She can't be here. This is a closed board meeting." Harold Whitmore, the board chairman and one of Grandpa's oldest friends, stood up. "Actually, Richard, as majority shareholder, she has every right to be here. In fact, she called this meeting." The next 2 hours were a masterclass in corporate warfare. I presented my takeover bid with clinical precision, outlining the failures of current management, the path to bankruptcy if nothing changed, and my comprehensive turnaround plan. Daniel tried to interrupt several times, but the board shut him down. His incompetence became painfully apparent when he couldn't answer basic questions about the company's operations. "This is a family company," Dad protested as the reality of his situation sank in. "You can't just come in here and take over." "A family company that you've run into the ground," I countered. "Mitchell Manufacturing has lost 40% of its value under your leadership. 60 employees have been laid off while Daniel's executive compensation has tripled. You've defaulted on 3 major loans and alienated our biggest clients." I turned to address the full board. "I'm not here to destroy this company. I'm here to save it." My proposal includes a complete digital transformation, automation of key processes, retraining programs for our workforce, and a renewed focus on quality that would have made my grandfather proud. The vote was unanimous. Every board member except my father supported the transition of leadership to Meridian Holdings, with me as CEO. As the decision was recorded, I saw something break in my father's eyes, the realization that his dismissal of me had been his greatest business failure. "There's one more matter," I announced as the meeting prepared to adjourn. "Effective immediately, the position of Executive Vice President is eliminated. Daniel Mitchell's employment is terminated. with the severance package outlined in Section 8 of the restructuring plan. Daniel jumped to his feet. "You can't fire me. I'm family." "This is business, not family," I replied evenly. "Your performance metrics are the lowest in the company. You've cost us 3 major accounts through negligence, and your expense reports show a pattern of misuse that borders on fraud." "Dad," Daniel turned desperately to our father. "Do something." But Dad sat silently, defeated. The power structure that had protected Daniel's mediocrity for years had crumbled in a single morning. After the meeting, as board members filed out, Harold Whitmore approached me. "Your grandfather would be proud, Emily. He always said you were the one who truly understood what he built." "Thank you, Harold. I just hope I can save it." "You already have," he smiled. "The hardest part was having the courage to act." As I gathered my materials, my father remained seated, staring at his hands. Daniel had stormed out, shouting threats about lawsuits and revenge. For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy for the man who'd dismissed me for so long. "Dad," I said softly, "I meant what I said about the advisory role. Your knowledge of our legacy clients could be valuable during the transition." He looked up, his face aged 10 years in 2 hours. "Why, Emily? Why go to such lengths?" "Because someone had to," I replied. "Grandpa built something worth saving. I couldn't stand by and watch it die just because you couldn't see past your own biases." I left him there, contemplating the wreckage of his assumptions. As I walked through the factory floor again, Tom caught my eye and gave me a thumbs up. Word had already spread. The old guard who remembered Grandpa Joe's leadership sensed hope. For the first time in years. My phone buzzed with messages from my team at Mitchell Digital Solutions. They were ready to begin the integration process, bringing their expertise to bear on the mammoth task ahead. We had 6 months to turn the company around before the banks called in their loans. As I stepped into the morning sunlight, I realized the easy part was over. Taking control was one thing. Saving Mitchell Manufacturing would require every ounce of skill, determination, and leadership I possessed. But for the first time in my life, I felt the weight of my family's legacy not as a burden, but as a calling. The failure had seized the reins. Now came the real test, proving that sometimes the best leaders are forged in the fires of others' doubts. The first week as CEO of Mitchell Manufacturing proved that taking control was merely the opening move in a complex chess game. Resistance came from unexpected quarters, and the challenges multiplied faster than I had anticipated. Monday morning began with a company-wide email announcing the leadership change. Within an hour, my inbox flooded with responses ranging from cautious optimism to outright hostility. The most concerning came from Robert Hayes, the production manager who had been Daniel's drinking buddy and chief enabler. "The factory floor won't follow a little girl playing CEO," his message read. "Real manufacturing isn't done on computers." I called an emergency meeting with all department heads for that afternoon. As I entered the conference room, the tension was palpable. 20 faces stared back at me, some curious, others openly skeptical, and a few barely concealing their contempt. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, standing rather than sitting to establish authority. "Mitchell Manufacturing is at a crossroads. We have 2 choices: evolve or die." The Korean contract loss wasn't an isolated incident. It's a symptom of systemic failure to adapt to modern manufacturing standards. Robert Hayes interrupted. "With all due respect, what does a digital marketing consultant know about running a factory?" I had anticipated this challenge. "Mr. Hayes, I noticed you've been using the same production scheduling system since 1998. Are you aware that modern AI-driven scheduling could increase our efficiency by 35% while reducing waste by 20%? His face reddened. "Those fancy systems don't understand real-world manufacturing." "Actually, they do," I countered, pulling up a presentation on the screen. This is a case study from Yamamoto Industries, a company similar to ours that I consulted for last year. After implementing our digital transformation strategy, their productivity increased by 42%, and they secured 3 new international contracts. The room fell silent as I walked them through the details. Margaret Chen nodded approvingly, while others began taking notes. Even Robert seemed momentarily subdued. Each of you will receive a detailed transition plan for your department, I continued. We have 6 months to demonstrate viability to our creditors. This isn't optional, it's survival. As the meeting concluded, Sarah Martinez, our head of human resources, approached me privately. Emily, there's something you should know. Daniel has been calling employees, suggesting they resist the changes. He's promising that your father will regain control soon. This news, while disturbing, wasn't surprising. That evening, I worked late reviewing personnel files and performance metrics. The rot went deeper than I'd realized. Daniel had surrounded himself with cronies who were more loyal to their inflated salaries than to the company's success. Tuesday brought a new crisis. 3 major suppliers threatened to suspend shipments due to outstanding payments. I spent the morning on conference calls, personally guaranteeing payment schedules and leveraging my reputation from Mitchell Digital Solutions to buy time. Emily, said Jack Chen from Precision Components, I'm only agreeing to this because your grandfather was a man of his word. You have 30 days to make good on these payments, or we're done. Wednesday's challenge came from an unexpected source, my mother. She arrived at my office unannounced, designer handbag clutched tightly to her chest. Emily, this has gone far enough, she declared, settling into a chair without invitation. Your father is devastated. Daniel is talking about suing. You need to step down and let the family sort this out privately. I studied her carefully, noting the perfect makeup that couldn't quite hide the stress lines around her eyes. Mom, did you know the company pension fund is underfunded by 40%? That Dad authorized loans against it to cover Daniel's failed expansion project? Her composure cracked slightly. That's not possible. It's not only possible, it's documented, I replied, sliding a folder across my desk. If we don't turn this company around, 300 employees lose their retirement savings. Is that the family legacy you want? She stared at the documents, color draining from her face. For perhaps the first time, she was seeing the reality behind the facade she'd helped maintain. Thursday tested my resolve in ways I hadn't anticipated. A group of senior employees, led by Robert Hayes, staged what amounted to a soft strike. They followed procedures exactly, which in manufacturing often means grinding operations to a halt. I walked onto the factory floor, hard hat in place, and approached the group directly. Gentlemen, I understand change is difficult, but let me be clear. This company will modernize, with or without you. The question is whether you want to be part of its future or its past. Robert stepped forward, arms crossed. You think you can replace 30 years of experience with computers? No, I said firmly. I think we can enhance 30 years of experience with technology. Your knowledge is invaluable, Robert. But that knowledge needs to evolve. The choice is yours: adapt and thrive, or resist and become obsolete. The standoff lasted another tense minute before Robert finally nodded. Show us what you've got, boss. Friday culminated in a surprise visit from Nathan Reynolds, CEO of our largest competitor, Reynolds Industrial. He invited himself to lunch under the pretense of professional courtesy. Emily, he smiled over his steak, you've caused quite a stir in our industry. Taking over Daddy's company. It's like something out of a movie. I recognized the condescension behind his charm. What can I do for you, Nathan? I'll be direct. Reynolds Industrial is prepared to acquire Mitchell Manufacturing. We'll assume all debts and guarantee employment for most of your workforce. You'll make a tidy profit and can return to your consulting practice. The offer was tempting for a moment, an easy exit from the mounting pressures. But then I remembered Grandpa Joe's words, "Never sell your legacy for convenience." I appreciate the offer, Nathan, but Mitchell Manufacturing isn't for sale. We're in the middle of a transformation that will make us stronger than ever. His smile faltered. You're making a mistake. The industry is changing, and small players like Mitchell can't survive alone. Watch us, I replied, standing to leave. Oh, and Nathan? You might want to update your own systems. I noticed your productivity has been declining for 3 quarters straight. As I drove home that evening, exhausted but energized, I reflected on the week's battles. Each challenge had revealed something crucial about the company, about my capabilities, and about the true nature of leadership. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret Chen. First week down. You've earned the respect of more people than you know. Your grandfather would be proud. I smiled, knowing the hardest battles still lay ahead. But for the first time in my life, I was fighting for something bigger than proving my worth to my family. I was fighting for the hundreds of employees who depended on Mitchell Manufacturing, for the legacy my grandfather built, and for the principle that competence should triumph over nepotism. The war for Mitchell Manufacturing's soul had begun, and I was just getting started. The second week of my tenure began with a decision that would define everything that followed. I stood in my grandfather's old office, now mine, staring at 2 folders on my desk. One contained a lucrative offer from my largest client at Mitchell Digital Solutions, a 3-year contract worth $12 million. The other held Mitchell Manufacturing's dire quarterly projections. I couldn't run both companies effectively. The choice was clear but painful. That morning, I called James Morrison, my second-in-command at Mitchell Digital Solutions. James, I need you to sit down for this conversation. What's wrong, Emily? Did we lose the Patterson account? No, James. I'm promoting you to CEO of Mitchell Digital Solutions, effective immediately. The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. You're giving me the company? But Emily, you built this from nothing. It's your baby. And now it's yours to grow, I replied, feeling both pride and loss. Mitchell Manufacturing needs my full attention. The team trusts you, the clients respect you, and you've earned this opportunity. After finalizing the transition details, I signed the papers that transferred operational control of my successful consulting firm to James. The financial security I'd built over years was now tied entirely to Mitchell Manufacturing's survival. There was no safety net, no backup plan. The gravity of my commitment became apparent during that afternoon's emergency financial meeting. Margaret Chen, our CFO, presented the unvarnished truth to our newly formed crisis management team. We have enough cash reserves for 90 days of operations, she announced grimly. After that, we're looking at bankruptcy unless we secure new contracts or additional financing. The room fell silent. These weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represented the livelihoods of 300 families. What about the banks? Asked Sarah Martinez from HR. They're watching closely, Margaret replied. They'll call in our loans at the first sign of missed payments. I stood up, drawing everyone's attention. Then we have 90 days to prove we're worth saving. Here's what we're going to do. Over the next hour, I outlined an aggressive transformation strategy. We would fast-track the automation of our most profitable production line, retrain workers for new technologies, and pursue contracts in emerging markets that our competitors had overlooked. This is impossible, Robert Hayes protested, though with less hostility than before. We can't implement new systems that quickly. We can if we work together, I countered. I'm bringing in my top integration team from Mitchell Digital. They'll work alongside your people, not replace them. This is about evolution, not elimination. That evening, I made another crucial decision. I moved into a small apartment near The factory, selling my luxury downtown condo to inject personal funds into the company. The symbolism wasn't lost on employees who'd watched Daniel flaunt his wealth while their benefits were cut. Word of my commitment spread quickly. Tom, the security guard, stopped me one morning with tears in his eyes. "Miss Emily, my daughter, works in accounting. She told me what you did, putting your own money in to keep us afloat. Your grandpa would be mighty proud." The third week brought an unexpected ally. Catherine Walsh, a retired industry veteran and former board member, reached out after hearing about the leadership change. "Emily, I served with your grandfather for 20 years, she said over coffee. "I resigned when your father started running the company into the ground. But if you're serious about saving it, I want to help." Catherine's network proved invaluable. She opened doors to potential clients who'd written off Mitchell Manufacturing, vouching for our new direction. Her endorsement carried weight that my reputation alone couldn't match. Meanwhile, resistance from the old guard began to crumble. Robert Hayes, initially my fiercest critic, witnessed firsthand how digital integration improved his department's efficiency. During a late-night troubleshooting session, he pulled me aside. "I owe you an apology," he said gruffly. "I thought you were just another suit trying to fix things with fancy computers. But you're here on the floor with us getting your hands dirty. That means something." "We're in this together, Robert," I replied. "Your experience plus new technology. That's how we win." The turning point came during week 4. We landed a contract with Nexus Automotive, a mid-sized manufacturer looking for a supplier that could guarantee both traditional quality and modern connectivity. It wasn't huge, just $2 million annually, but it proved our new model could work. I gathered the entire company in the main factory floor for the announcement. Standing on a makeshift platform, I looked out at 300 faces, some still skeptical, others cautiously hopeful. "Today marks the beginning of Mitchell Manufacturing's renaissance," I declared. "The Nexus contract proves what I've believed all along, that we can honor our legacy while embracing innovation. But this is just the start." As applause rippled through the crowd, I noticed my father standing at the back. He'd been coming to the factory occasionally, ostensibly to collect personal items, but really to observe. Our eyes met across the distance, and for the first time, I saw something other than disappointment in his gaze. That night, reviewing production schedules in my office, I received a text from my mother. "I was wrong about you. So was your father. We need to talk." I stared at the message, feeling a complex mix of emotions. The validation I'd craved for years had finally arrived, but it no longer defined me. My worth wasn't determined by their approval, but by the lives I was fighting to improve. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Daniel stood in the doorway, looking, diminished without his executive trappings. "Can we talk?" he asked, his usual arrogance replaced by uncertainty. I gestured to a chair. "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking," he began hesitantly, "about everything. The way I treated you, the way I ran my department. I need to make things right." "What are you proposing?" "Let me earn my way back," he said. "Not as an executive, but starting from the bottom. I'll work in maintenance, learn the real business. Prove I can contribute something valuable." I studied him carefully, searching for signs of manipulation. Instead, I found genuine humility, perhaps for the first time in his life. "Report to Robert Hayes tomorrow morning," I decided. "He'll assign you to the maintenance crew. You'll receive standard starting pay, no special treatment. One mistake, one complaint about attitude, and you're gone." Daniel nodded, relief evident on his face. "Thank you, Emily. I won't let you down." As he left, I realized that my commitment to saving Mitchell Manufacturing had sparked unexpected transformations. By fully investing myself, financially, emotionally, and professionally, I'd created a catalyst for change that extended beyond balance sheets and production metrics. The company's redemption had become intertwined with personal redemptions. In choosing to fight for my grandfather's legacy, I'd inadvertently opened pathways for others to redeem themselves too. 90 days to save a company. But in committing everything to this cause, I'd already achieved something remarkable, proving that true leadership isn't about power or position, but about the courage to risk everything for what you believe in. 6 weeks into my leadership, Mitchell Manufacturing began showing signs of life that surprised even the most optimistic observers. The Nexus Automotive contract sparked a chain reaction of positive developments that transformed our workplace culture and operational efficiency. I established a daily routine of arriving before sunrise, walking the factory floor, and speaking with night shift workers. These conversations revealed insights no executive report could capture. Maria Gonzalez, a 20-year veteran of the IR assembly line, shared an idea that would revolutionize our quality control process. "Miss Emily," she said one morning, "we've been checking products at the end of the line for decades. What if we implemented checks at 3 critical points during assembly? We'd catch errors earlier and save materials." Her suggestion led to a 15% reduction in waste within 2 weeks. I promoted Maria to Quality Assurance Supervisor, sending a clear message that good ideas were valued regardless of their source. The digital transformation progressed faster than anticipated. My former team from Mitchell Digital Solutions worked alongside veteran employees, creating a knowledge exchange that benefited both groups. Young technicians learned practical manufacturing wisdom, while experienced workers embraced new technologies. Catherine Walsh proved instrumental in rebuilding our reputation. She arranged a meeting with Preston Industries, a major automotive supplier that had blacklisted Mitchell Manufacturing under my father's leadership. "Emily's bringing Mitchell into the 21st century," Catherine told Preston's CEO during our presentation. "This isn't your father's company anymore." We left that meeting with a provisional contract worth $5 million annually, contingent on meeting specific modernization benchmarks within 3 months. The pressure was immense, but our team rose to the challenge. Daniel's transformation continued, to surprise everyone. Working under Robert Hayes in maintenance, he discovered an aptitude for mechanical systems that his executive position had never revealed. One afternoon, he identified a flaw in our primary conveyor system that had decreased efficiency by 8% for months. "I never bothered to understand how things actually worked," he admitted during a team meeting. "I was too busy playing executive to learn the business." His humility and growing competence earned him respect from workers who had previously despised him. Robert Hayes reported that Daniel arrived early, stayed late, and never complained about the menial tasks assigned to him. My parents' attitudes shifted gradually. Mother began volunteering in the company's community outreach program, using her social connections to attract positive attention to our transformation. Father started attending production meetings as an observer, offering occasional insights without attempting to reassert control. During week 8, we achieved a significant milestone. The implementation of our new integrated manufacturing system reduced production time by 30% while improving quality metrics across all product lines. The local business journal featured our transformation on its front page. Mitchell Manufacturing, from near bankruptcy to industry innovation. This publicity attracted unexpected attention. Dr. Sarah Chen from the State Technical Institute proposed a partnership to create an apprenticeship program, combining classroom learning with hands-on experience at our facility. "Your blend of traditional craftsmanship and cutting-edge technology makes Mitchell Manufacturing the perfect training ground," she explained. "We can develop the next generation of manufacturing leaders here." The program launched with 15 students, bringing fresh energy and perspectives to our workforce. Several full-time employees enrolled in evening classes, inspired to upgrade their skills. Our financial position stabilized ahead of schedule. Margaret Chen delivered the good news during our weekly executive meeting. We've exceeded revenue projections for 2 consecutive months. The banks are impressed enough to extend our credit line. Employee morale reached levels not seen since my grandfather's era. The suggestion box, once a repository for complaints, overflowed with improvement ideas. We implemented an innovation bonus program, rewarding employees whose suggestions generated measurable benefits. The transformation wasn't without challenges. A competitor attempted to poach our newly trained workers with higher salary offers. Instead of matching the offers blindly, I met with each targeted employee personally. "We're building something special here," I told them. "Stay with us, and you'll be part of manufacturing history. We'll create profit-sharing plans and advancement opportunities that recognize your value." All but 2 chose to stay, citing belief in our vision and appreciation for being treated as valuable contributors rather than expendable resources. By week 10, we'd secured enough new contracts to guarantee profitability through the next fiscal year. The board meeting that month felt surreal compared to the tension of my takeover. "The turnaround exceeds our most optimistic projections," Harold Whitmore announced. "Emily, you've accomplished in 10 weeks what we thought would take 2 years." I deflected the praise to our team. "This success belongs to every employee who believed in our vision and worked to make it reality. We're not just saving a company, we're creating a new model for American manufacturing." The most poignant moment came during our first company picnic under new leadership. Families gathered on the factory grounds, children playing while adults shared stories of recent successes. I watched my father deepen conversation with Robert Hayes, both men laughing, something I'd never witnessed before. Mother approached me with tears in her eyes. "I spent years comparing you to others, never seeing your true worth. Can you forgive us?" "We're family," I replied, embracing her. "And family means second chances." Daniel joined us, still wearing his maintenance uniform with pride. "Remember when you offered me that advisory position?" He grinned. "I think I'll stick with maintenance for now. I'm actually good at it." As sunset painted the sky orange, I climbed onto the picnic table to address the gathering. 300 faces looked up at me, no longer with skepticism, but with hope and pride. 10 weeks ago, we started a journey together, I began. Many thought we'd fail. Some actively hoped we would. But look at us now. We've proven that respect, innovation, and hard work can transform not just a company, but lives. Applause erupted across the grounds. In that moment, I realized we'd built something more valuable than profits or market share. We'd created a community united by shared purpose and mutual respect. The momentum we'd generated felt unstoppable. Orders continued flowing in. Employee retention reached record highs, and industry publications featured our transformation as a case study in successful turnaround management. Yet I knew the real work lay ahead. Maintaining momentum required constant innovation and vigilance. Success could breed complacency, our greatest potential enemy. As the picnic wound down, Catherine Walsh pulled me aside. "Your grandfather would be bursting with pride," she said. "You've not only saved his company, you've elevated it beyond his wildest dreams." That night, reviewing the next quarter's strategic plans, I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. The girl they'd called a failure had built an unstoppable momentum that would carry Mitchell Manufacturing into a new era of prosperity and purpose. 3 months into our transformation, just as Mitchell Manufacturing seemed unstoppable, disaster struck with the force of a tsunami. The morning began ordinarily enough, with production lines humming and workers executing their tasks with newfound efficiency. I was reviewing expansion plans in my office when Margaret Chen burst through the door, her normally composed demeanor shattered. "Emily, we have a catastrophic problem," she announced, clutching a stack of reports. "The Richardson account, our largest new client, their entire shipment failed quality testing, every single unit." The blood drained from my face. Richardson Aerospace represented 40% of our projected revenue for the quarter. More critically, they were our gateway to the lucrative aerospace sector, a market we'd fought tooth and nail to enter. That's impossible, I responded, reaching for the reports. Our quality control measures are triple redundant now. How could this happen? Margaret's voice trembled. Initial investigation suggests systematic sabotage. Someone deliberately altered the calibration settings on our precision machinery. The deviations are subtle enough to pass our internal checks, but fail the client's more stringent aerospace standards. The implications hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about one failed shipment. Richardson Aerospace had staked their reputation on choosing us over established suppliers. If word spread about this failure, our credibility would evaporate overnight. Get the crisis team assembled immediately, I ordered. And Margaret, not a word about sabotage until we have concrete evidence. The last thing we need is paranoia spreading through the workforce. Within an hour, our conference room filled with key personnel. Robert Hayes looked grimmer than I'd ever seen him. Sarah Martinez from HR wrung her hands nervously. Even Catherine Walsh, usually unflappable, appeared deeply concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, we're facing the greatest threat to Mitchell Manufacturing since I took control. Here's what we know. 20,000 units shipped to Richardson Aerospace failed their quality assessment. We have 72 hours to provide a solution, or they'll terminate our contract and demand compensation that could bankrupt us. The room erupted in concerned murmurs. I raised my hand for silence. First priority, determining how this happened. Robert, I need your team to examine every piece of equipment involved in that production run. Sarah, discreetly review access logs and security footage. Catherine, reach out to your contacts at Richardson. We need to buy time. As the meeting dispersed, I caught Robert's arm. Your honest assessment? Accident or sabotage? His jaw clenched. In 30 years, I've never seen simultaneous calibration failures across multiple machines. This was deliberate. The investigation consumed the next 48 hours. I practically lived on the factory floor, personally inspecting equipment and reviewing procedures. The evidence mounted inexorably toward an inside job. Security footage revealed a shadowy figure accessing the calibration systems during the night shift, but the image quality made identification impossible. Meanwhile, Richardson Aerospace's patience wore thin. Their CEO, Amanda Richardson, called me directly. Emily, I took a massive risk choosing Mitchell over established suppliers, she said, her voice cold. My board is demanding I terminate our contract immediately. Give me one reason why I shouldn't. Because we'll not only fix this problem, I replied with more confidence than I felt. We'll implement safeguards that make us the most secure supplier in your network. Give me 48 more hours. She paused. You have 24. After that, I'm pulling the plug and seeking legal remedies. As I ended the call, Daniel appeared in my doorway. His maintenance uniform was streaked with grease, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. Emily, I think I know what happened, he said quietly. Can we talk privately? In my office, Daniel paced nervously before speaking. Remember Marcus Fitzgerald? Dad's old golf buddy who supplied our control systems? I nodded. Marcus had been furious when I terminated his inflated contracts in favor of more competitive suppliers. I overheard him at the country club last week, Daniel continued. He was bragging about teaching you a lesson for destroying established relationships. I didn't think much of it then, but now. The pieces clicked into place. Marcus still had backdoor access to our legacy systems, knowledge that few others possessed. He'd likely paid someone on the night shift to execute his plan. Why didn't you mention this earlier? I asked. Daniel's shoulders slumped. Because I used to be just like him. Entitled, vindictive, caring more about connections than competence. I was ashamed to admit I knew people capable of this. His honesty moved me. Thank you for coming forward. This gives us a fighting chance. Armed with this information, our IT security team worked through the night. They discovered malicious code embedded in our calibration software, designed to introduce microscopic variations that accumulated into significant defects. The sophistication suggested professional industrial sabotage. By dawn, we'd purged the malicious code and recalibrated all affected systems. But the damage was done. 20,000 defective units sat in Richardson's warehouse, and our reputation hung by a thread. I called an emergency all-hands meeting at 6 a.m. The entire workforce gathered in the main production area, faces etched with worry. Many feared layoffs or closure. "Mitchell family," I addressed them, using the term deliberately. "We face our darkest hour. Our systems were compromised, leading to a catastrophic quality failure. But this crisis will not define us, our response will." I outlined an audacious plan. We would run 3 shifts around the clock to reproduce the entire Richardson order within 10 days, less than half the normal timeline. Every unit would undergo quadruple quality checks. Senior management, myself included, would work alongside line workers. "This will require sacrifice from everyone," I continued. "Overtime, missed family dinners, exhaustion. But if we succeed, we'll prove that Mitchell Manufacturing doesn't just meet challenges, we exceed expectations when it matters most." The response stunned me. Workers volunteered for double shifts. Office staff offered to assist on production lines. Even former skeptics stepped forward, united by shared purpose. Robert Hayes spoke for many when he declared, "We've come too far to let some coward sabotage destroy what we've built. Count me in for whatever it takes." I personally called Amanda Richardson. "I'm not asking for understanding or sympathy," I told her. "I'm stating facts. We were sabotaged by a disgruntled former supplier. We've eliminated the threat and will deliver replacement units exceeding your specifications within 10 days, at no additional cost." 10 days? She scoffed. "That's impossible." "Watch us," I replied. The next 10 days blurred into a symphony of determination and grit. I worked 18-hour shifts alongside employees, learning to operate machinery I'd only observed before. My hands blistered, my back ached, but I refused to ask anyone to do what I wouldn't. Dad appeared on day 3, rolling up his sleeves. "I may have forgotten what real leadership looks like," he said gruffly, "but I remember how to work a line. Where do you need me?" Mother organized food deliveries for workers pulling double shifts. Local restaurants, hearing of our crisis, donated meals. The community rallied around us, transforming potential disaster into collective triumph. Daniel emerged as an unexpected hero, his mechanical aptitude and newfound humility inspiring younger workers. He caught several potential issues before they became problems, proving his worth beyond any executive title. Catherine Walsh worked her network tirelessly, keeping Richardson's board at bay while generating positive press about our response to adversity. "This isn't just damage control," she told reporters. "This is American manufacturing at its finest, resilient, innovative, and united." On day 9, we completed the order. Every unit passed our enhanced quality protocols with margins exceeding aerospace standards. We'd accomplished the impossible through sheer collective will. The delivery to Richardson Aerospace became an event. Local media covered our convoy of trucks departing the facility. Workers lined the route, cheering as their handiwork headed to its destination. Amanda Richardson herself supervised the receiving inspection. As unit after unit passed testing with flying colors, her skepticism transformed into admiration. "In 30 years in this industry," she announced to assembled media, "I've never witnessed such a remarkable recovery. Mitchell Manufacturing hasn't just met our standards, they've redefined them. This is how you respond to a crisis." The aftermath brought unexpected benefits. Richardson doubled their order volume and recommended us to other aerospace firms. Our story spread throughout the industry as an example of resilience and integrity. During our post-crisis debrief, I addressed the exhausted but triumphant team. "You've proven that no sabotage can break our spirit, no challenge can exceed our capability. We didn't just save our company, we forged an unbreakable bond." The investigation led to Marcus Fitzgerald's arrest for industrial sabotage. His conviction sent shockwaves through the old boys network that had enabled such behavior for decades. As normalcy returned, I reflected on the crisis's silver linings. It had unified our workforce, proved our capabilities to skeptical clients, and demonstrated that ethical leadership could triumph over corruption. Most importantly, it had completed our transformation from a failing family business into a modern manufacturing powerhouse. The girl they'd called a failure had led a company through its darkest hour into its brightest future. The crisis hadn't broken us. It had revealed our true strength. And that strength would carry Mitchell Manufacturing to heights my grandfather could only have dreamed of. The euphoria of overcoming the sabotage crisis lasted exactly 1 week. Then, reality struck with devastating precision. While we had successfully delivered the replacement order to Richardson Aerospace, the financial toll of running triple shifts, expedited materials procurement, and enhanced security measures had drained our reserves to dangerous levels. I sat in my office late on a Friday evening, staring at spreadsheets that painted an increasingly grim picture. Margaret Chen had just delivered the news I'd been dreading. Despite our heroic recovery, the crisis had cost us nearly $3 million. Money we simply didn't have. "We have enough cash to make payroll for 2 more months," Margaret explained, her voice heavy with concern. "After that, we'll need to secure emergency financing or face bankruptcy." The irony wasn't lost on me. We'd proven our technical capabilities, earned industry acclaim, and unified our workforce, only to face financial ruin from the very effort that saved our reputation. "What about the banks?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "They're viewing us as high risk after the sabotage incident," Margaret replied. "They want personal guarantees and collateral we don't have. The interest rates they're offering would cripple us long term." After Margaret left, I remained at my desk, paralyzed by the weight of responsibility. 300 employees depended on me for their livelihoods. Families relied on Mitchell Manufacturing for healthcare, mortgages, and their children's education. Had I led them through crisis only to fail them in the aftermath? The weekend brought no respite. I worked around the clock, exploring every possible financial avenue. Private equity firms demanded controlling stakes. Venture capitalists wanted to gut our workforce and offshore production. Each option felt like a betrayal of everything we'd fought to preserve. By Monday morning, exhaustion and stress had taken their toll. I arrived at the office to find a delegation of senior employees waiting, led by Robert Hayes and Maria Gonzalez. "Emily, we need to talk," Robert said, his weathered face creased with worry. "Rumors are spreading about financial troubles. People are scared." I invited them into my office, deciding transparency was the only ethical path forward. "The rumors are true," I admitted. "The crisis recovery has left us financially vulnerable. I'm exploring all options, but I won't lie to you. The situation is serious." Maria spoke up, her voice trembling. "My daughter just started college. If I lose this job—" "I'm doing everything possible to prevent that," I assured her, though my own confidence wavered. The meeting ended with promises to keep them informed, but I could see doubt creeping into their eyes. The unified front we'd built during the crisis was beginning to fracture under financial pressure. That afternoon brought another blow. Our primary steel supplier, Jensen Materials, demanded immediate payment for outstanding invoices. "We sympathize with your situation," their credit manager explained coldly. "But we can't extend further credit. Pay within 48 hours, or will I—" "Halt," shipments. Without steel, production would grind to a halt within days. I spent hours negotiating, eventually convincing them to accept partial payment. But the reprieve was temporary at best. As evening fell, I found myself alone in my grandfather's old office, surrounded by his memorabilia. His portrait seemed to watch me with disappointment. Had I saved the company's soul only to lose its body? A soft knock interrupted my spiral of despair. Daniel stood in the doorway, still wearing his maintenance uniform but carrying a leather portfolio I'd never seen before. "Can I come in?" he asked hesitantly. I nodded, too drained to speak. "I've been thinking," he began, settling into a chair. "About everything. My wasted years, the opportunities I squandered, the trust fund Grandpa left me." I sat up straighter. "Trust fund?" Daniel opened the portfolio, revealing financial documents. "Grandpa set aside money for both of us, but with different conditions. Mine was locked until I demonstrated meaningful contribution to the family legacy. The trustees never deemed my executive role sufficient." He slid the papers across my desk. "Last week, they approved the release. Apparently, my work in maintenance, the humility I've shown, and my role in exposing the sabotage finally met Grandpa's criteria." My eyes widened at the figure on the documents. "Daniel, this is $8 million, he finished. "And I want to invest it all in Mitchell Manufacturing." Tears welled in my eyes. "But this is your inheritance, your security." "No," he said firmly. "This is my chance at redemption. You gave me that opportunity when you could have cast me aside. Now it's my turn to give back." The next morning, I convened an emergency board meeting. With Daniel's investment secured as a convertible loan, we could not only survive, but implement strategic improvements to prevent future vulnerabilities. The board's reaction was mixed. Some viewed it as a lifeline, others as a risk of renewed family drama. Harold Whitmore, ever the voice of wisdom, addressed the concern directly. 6 months ago, Daniel Mitchell was everything wrong with nepotism in business, he stated. Today, he's offering to risk his entire inheritance to save the company, not as an executive seeking power, but as an investor believing in Emily's vision. I motioned to accept the investment. The vote passed unanimously. News of the investment spread quickly through the company. Morale, which had begun to falter, rebounded dramatically. Workers saw it as proof that the Mitchell family stood united behind their future. With financial stability restored, I implemented comprehensive changes. We established an emergency fund, diversified our client base to reduce dependency on any single account, and created an employee stock ownership plan that would give workers a direct stake in our success. The transformation caught the attention of the business press. Forbes ran a feature titled, "The Redemption of Mitchell Manufacturing: How a Family's Failure Became Its Greatest Asset." The article highlighted not just our technical turnaround, but the human story of reconciliation and growth. 3 weeks after Daniel's investment, we received unexpected news. Richardson Aerospace, impressed by our recovery and subsequent improvements, offered a long-term strategic partnership worth $50 million over 5 years. They wanted to make Mitchell Manufacturing their exclusive supplier for a new product line. Amanda Richardson visited personally to sign the agreement. "Your response to crisis showed us what kind of partner you are," she explained. "Not just technically capable, but ethically sound and resilient. That's rare in this industry." The signing ceremony became a celebration of our journey. Employees gathered in the main production area, where just months ago they'd rallied to save the company. Now they cheered a future brighter than anyone had imagined. Dad approached me afterward, his eyes glistening. "I spent years trying to mold you into something you weren't," he said quietly. "I never saw that you were already everything this company needed." "We all had to learn hard lessons," I replied, embracing him. The important thing is that we learned them. Mother joined us, her designer suit replaced by a Mitchell Manufacturing polo shirt she wore while volunteering in our community programs. "I've been thinking," she said, "about starting a foundation. In Grandpa Joe's name, supporting women in manufacturing. Would you help me set it up?" The request marked a profound shift in our relationship. She wasn't just acknowledging my success, but seeking my guidance. As the celebration continued, I stepped outside for a moment of solitude. The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, reminiscent of that first company picnic after the takeover. Catherine Walsh found me there, leaning against the building where my grandfather had started with a single machine, 60 years ago. "You've done something remarkable," she said. "Not just saving the company, but healing a family. Your grandfather dreamed of building a legacy. You've ensured it will last for generations." "It almost didn't," I admitted. "If Daniel hadn't stepped forward with his investment." "But he did," Catherine interrupted, "because you showed him a path to redemption. Leadership isn't just about making tough decisions. It's about inspiring others to become their best selves." That evening, reviewing the day's events in my office, I realized our darkest moment had led to our greatest transformation. The financial crisis had stripped away remaining pretenses, forcing us to confront who we really were as individuals and as a family. Daniel's selfless act had completed his redemption arc. My parents had moved from denial to acceptance to active support. The workforce had evolved from skeptical employees to passionate stakeholders, and I had grown from a daughter seeking validation to a leader secure in her own worth. The girl they'd called a failure hadn't just saved a company. She'd redeemed a family legacy and created a model for inclusive, ethical leadership in modern manufacturing. As I locked up for the night, I touched my grandfather's portrait one last time. "We did it, Grandpa," I whispered. "Not just the turnaround you envisioned, but something more. A family united by purpose rather than divided by prejudice." The future stretched before us, filled with challenges, yet unburdened by the past. We'd faced our darkest hour and emerged stronger, proving that sometimes the greatest victories rise from the ashes of near defeat. The Richardson Aerospace partnership marked the beginning of Mitchell Manufacturing's renaissance. But what followed transformed us from a regional survivor into a national innovator. 6 months after securing our financial lifeline, an opportunity emerged that would redefine our company's trajectory and test every principle I had fought to establish. The call came on a crisp Tuesday morning in October. I was reviewing production reports when Margaret Chen burst into my office, uncharacteristically flustered. "Emily, you need to take this call immediately," she said, gesturing to my private line. "It's the Department of Defense." My heart skipped a beat. The DoD represented the holy grail of manufacturing contracts, prestigious, lucrative, and notoriously difficult to secure. I steadied my nerves and picked up the receiver. "Ms. Mitchell, this is General Patricia Williams from the Defense Logistics Agency. We've been following your company's remarkable turnaround with great interest." Over the next 30 minutes, General Williams outlined an opportunity that seemed almost too good to be true. The military was modernizing its supply chain. For critical components, seeking manufacturers who could combine traditional reliability with cutting-edge technology. Our response to the Richardson crisis, particularly our rapid production capabilities and enhanced security measures, had caught their attention. "We're inviting select manufacturers to compete for a $500 million contract," she explained. "The winner will become a preferred supplier for next-generation military equipment. Are you interested?" I managed to maintain professional composure despite my racing pulse. "Absolutely, General. What's the timeline?" "Proposals are due in 6 weeks. The selection process includes facility inspections, capability demonstrations, and security clearances. It's intensive, Ms. Mitchell. Many larger firms have failed to meet our standards." After confirming our participation, I convened an emergency leadership meeting. The conference room buzzed with excitement as I shared the news, but reality quickly tempered enthusiasm. The DoD contract would transform us overnight, Margaret noted, but the proposal requirements are staggering. We'll need ISO certifications. We don't have security protocols beyond anything we've implemented, and production capabilities we haven't yet developed. Robert Hayes, now promoted to Chief Operations Officer, added grimly, 6 weeks isn't enough time. We'd need to work. Miracles. Then we'll work miracles, I responded firmly. This opportunity aligns perfectly with Grandpa Joe's vision, pushing boundaries while maintaining integrity. We've overcome impossible odds before. We'll do it again. The next 6 weeks tested our organization like never before. I divided our workforce into specialized teams, each tackling specific requirements. We operated on a war footing, with departments working around the clock to meet certification deadlines. Daniel led the security enhancement team, applying his newfound humility and work ethic to implement military-grade protocols. His transformation continued to amaze everyone. The former entitled executive now worked 18-hour days alongside entry-level technicians, earning genuine respect through competence rather than nepotism. My father, embracing his advisory role, leveraged decades of industry relationships to fast-track certification processes. He negotiated with equipment suppliers, secured expedited inspections, and navigated bureaucratic obstacles with skill I'd never witnessed during his CEO tenure. I was so focused on maintaining the status quo, he confided during a late-night strategy session, that I forgot what real leadership looked like. Watching you these past months has been humbling and inspiring. Mother coordinated community relations. Recognizing that DoD contracts brought intense scrutiny, she organized town halls, addressed environmental concerns, and built grassroots support for our expansion. Her social expertise, once devoted to country club politics, now served a meaningful purpose. The proposal itself required extraordinary effort. I personally wrote every word, crafting a narrative that wove together our technical capabilities, cultural transformation, and commitment to excellence. Catherine Walsh provided invaluable guidance, helping position Mitchell Manufacturing as not just a supplier, but a strategic partner for national defense. 3 days before the deadline, disaster nearly struck again. Our primary data server crashed, threatening to destroy weeks of documentation. The IT team worked frantically to recover files while I prepared contingencies for manual submission. At 2 a.m., with the proposal due at noon, Sarah Martinez found me slumped over my desk, surrounded by printed backup documents. "Emily, go home," she urged gently. "You've done everything possible." "Not yet," I replied, forcing myself upright. "We need to triple-check every specification, every certification, every security protocol. This isn't just about winning a contract. It's about proving that ethical leadership and technical excellence can coexist." By dawn, the IT team had recovered our data. We submitted our proposal with 2 hours to spare, then collapsed in exhaustion. The waiting began. 2 weeks later, a DoD inspection team arrived unannounced, a standard tactic to assess real operations rather than staged presentations. They spent 3 days examining every aspect of our facility, interviewing employees at all levels, and testing our systems under stress conditions. I shadowed them throughout, answering questions with transparency that surprised the inspectors. When they discovered minor safety violations in one department, I immediately acknowledged the issues and demonstrated our corrective action protocols. "Most companies try to hide problems during inspections," the lead inspector remarked. "Your honesty is refreshing." "Integrity isn't just a buzzword here," I replied. "It's how we operate." The final selection process involved a presentation to Pentagon officials in Washington. I flew out with a small team, including Daniel and my father, a symbolic representation of our transformation. The night before, In our hotel suite, Dad pulled me aside. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know how proud I am," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Not just of what you've accomplished, but of who you've become. You're everything I should have been as a leader." The presentation itself lasted 4 hours. We faced intense questioning from military procurement specialists, technical experts, and security advisors. During a break, I overheard one official comment to another. "Their technical capabilities match the big players, but their corporate culture is unique. Did you see how the maintenance guy corrected the CEO's son about a process detail? No fear, just collaboration." 3 weeks of agonizing silence followed. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, the call came. General Williams herself delivered the news. "Congratulations, Ms. Mitchell. The selection committee unanimously chose Mitchell Manufacturing. Your combination of technical excellence, security protocols, and ethical leadership set you apart. Welcome to the Defense Industrial Base." The announcement triggered celebrations throughout our facility. Workers embraced, tears flowed, and spontaneous cheers erupted on the production floor. We had achieved the impossible, again. But the real turning point came during the contract signing ceremony at the Pentagon. As I stood beside General Williams, facing a room of defense officials and industry leaders, she made an unexpected announcement. "Mitchell Manufacturing represents the future of defense contracting," she declared. "They've proven that small businesses can compete with industry giants through innovation, integrity, and inclusive leadership. Ms. Mitchell, would you consider leading a new advisory committee on modernizing our supplier diversity programs?" The request stunned me. Beyond the contract itself, they wanted our transformation model to influence national policy. I accepted immediately, recognizing the opportunity to impact an entire industry. The months that followed brought profound changes. The DoD contract enabled expansion into new facilities, creation of hundreds of jobs, and development of cutting-edge technologies. We established training programs that became industry models, partnering with technical schools nationwide. Daniel emerged as a passionate advocate for second chances, speaking at business schools about his journey from entitled executive to humble contributor. His story resonated with young professionals struggling to find authentic purpose in their careers. My parents' transformation continued as well. Dad became a mentor for other family businesses navigating generational transitions, while Mom's foundation supported over 100 women entering manufacturing careers. Their marriage, strained for years by misplaced priorities, found new strength in shared purpose. The national spotlight brought unexpected challenges. Competitors attempted to discredit our success, claiming favoritism or luck. Former associates of Marcus Fitzgerald spread rumors about our security protocols. Media scrutiny intensified, with reporters digging into our family dynamics. I addressed these challenges head-on, maintaining radical transparency that disarmed critics. When a prominent business magazine questioned our rapid rise, I invited their reporters for unrestricted access to our operations. The resulting feature story, titled "The Anti-Dynasty: How Mitchell Manufacturing Rewrote the Family Business Playbook," became required reading in MBA programs. On the anniversary of my takeover, we held a company-wide celebration. Standing. Before our expanded workforce, now over 1,000 employees, I reflected on our journey. A year ago, conventional wisdom said we couldn't survive, I began. 6 months ago, they said we couldn't compete for major contracts. Today, they're studying how we did it. But the real story isn't about proving doubters wrong. It's about proving ourselves right. I paused, scanning faces that had become family. We've shown that success doesn't require sacrificing principles. That leadership means elevating others, not diminishing them. That family businesses can transcend nepotism to become meritocracies. And that sometimes the greatest innovations aren't technical, they're cultural. As applause filled the room, I caught my grandfather's portrait on the wall, moved from my office to the main hall where everyone could see it. His legacy had evolved beyond anything he could have imagined, yet remained true to his core values. The turning point hadn't been a single moment, but a series of choices, choosing courage over comfort, integrity over expedience, and inclusion over exclusion. Each decision had built upon the last, creating momentum that transformed not just a company, but an entire ecosystem of relationships. That evening, as cleanup crews dismantled celebration decorations, I found a quiet moment in my office. The Defense Department contract sat on my desk, its official seal gleaming under lamplight. But my attention was drawn to a simple frame nearby, the first dollar earned under my leadership, signed by every employee who had believed in our vision from the start. The girl they'd called a failure had become a catalyst for change far beyond our factory walls. The journey from family disappointment to industry leader had taught me that true success isn't measured in contracts or profits, but in lives transformed and potential unleashed. As I prepared to leave, my phone buzzed with a message from Amanda. "Richardson, congratulations on the DoD contract. You've redefined what's possible in our industry. The future is bright for those who dare to lead differently." Indeed, the future stretched before us, filled with possibilities we were only beginning to imagine. The turning point had arrived, and we were ready for whatever came next. The Department of Defense contract catapulted Mitchell Manufacturing into a new stratosphere of responsibility and opportunity. With national attention focused on our transformation story, I recognized that our next moves would determine whether we became a lasting success or merely a temporary sensation. The preparation phase for our expansion required meticulous planning, strategic foresight, and the wisdom to balance rapid growth with sustainable practices. I spent the weeks following the contract announcement in deep strategic planning. My office became a war room of whiteboards, market analyses, and expansion models. Margaret Chen and I developed financial projections that accounted for every conceivable scenario, from supply chain disruptions to geopolitical shifts. We weren't just planning for success, we were preparing for the challenges that success would inevitably bring. The first major decision involved our physical expansion. The DoD contract required production capabilities far beyond our current capacity. We needed new facilities, but where and how we built them would set the tone for our corporate culture moving forward. I rejected the conventional wisdom of relocating to regions with cheaper labor and fewer regulations. "We're staying in our community," I announced during a board meeting that stretched late into the evening. "Our workers made this transformation possible. We're not abandoning them for marginally better margins." Harold Whitmore raised his eyebrows. "Emily, the financial benefits of relocating are substantial. Are you sure this is wise?" "Wisdom isn't always about maximizing short-term profits," I replied. "Our strength comes from our people and our values. Besides, I have a different kind of expansion in mind." I unveiled plans for a revolutionary manufacturing campus adjacent to our current facility. The design incorporated sustainable technologies, apprenticeship centers, and research laboratories. Most importantly, it included affordable housing, developments, and community spaces, creating an ecosystem where employees could live, work, and thrive. "This isn't just a factory expansion," I explained, displaying architectural renderings. "It's a model for 21st century manufacturing communities. We're proving that industrial growth and social responsibility aren't mutually exclusive." The board voted unanimously to support the vision, though some members privately expressed concerns about the ambitious scope. Catherine Walsh pulled me aside afterward with a knowing smile. "Your grandfather dreamed of something like this," she said. "He called it manufacturing with heart. You're making it real." The next challenge involved talent acquisition. Our expansion would require hundreds of new employees, from entry-level positions to specialized engineers. Rather than simply posting job listings, I developed a comprehensive workforce development strategy. We partnered with regional universities, to create specialized degree programs in advanced manufacturing. We established scholarship funds for promising students from underserved communities. Most innovatively, we launched a second career academy for workers displaced by automation in other industries. The academy's first cohort included former coal miners, retail workers, and truck drivers, people whose jobs had vanished due to technological change. We provided paid training, housing stipends, and guaranteed employment upon completion. The program drew national attention as a model for addressing technological unemployment. Daniel took charge of the academy, finding his true calling in mentoring others who needed second chances. His personal transformation gave him unique credibility with students facing their own crossroads. "I wasted years thinking I deserved success just because of my last name," he told one class. "Real achievement comes from earning your place through dedication and continuous learning. You're all here because you're brave enough to start over. That's more impressive than any inherited privilege." As construction began on our expansion, I faced pressure from various stakeholders to compromise our standards. Government officials suggested expedited permits in exchange for political contributions. Suppliers offered better prices if we overlooked certain labor practices. Competitors spread rumors about our security protocols, hoping to undermine our DoD relationship. I addressed each challenge directly and transparently. When a prominent senator hinted at facilitating regulatory approvals for campaign support, I politely but firmly declined. "Senator, I appreciate your interest in our success," I responded during a tense meeting. "But Mitchell Manufacturing succeeds on merit, not favoritism. Our integrity isn't for sale at any price." Word of the exchange leaked to the press, generating headlines about the CEO who said no to Washington. Rather than damaging our prospects, it enhanced our reputation for ethical leadership. The DoD privately commended our stance, confirming that our values aligned with their vision for defense. Suppliers. The physical construction of our expansion coincided with a careful restructuring of our corporate governance. I implemented new policies that emphasize transparency, accountability, and stakeholder inclusion. We created an ethics board with independent members, established whistleblower protections that exceeded legal requirements, and published detailed sustainability reports that set new industry standards. My parents' continued evolution played a crucial role in this phase. Dad's advisory position evolved into a formal role as chairman of strategic partnerships. His decades of industry relationships, now filtered through hard-earned humility, opened doors that might have remained closed to a younger CEO. "I spent years building connections for the wrong reasons," he reflected during one of our strategy sessions. "Now I'm using them to create opportunities for others. It's remarkably fulfilling." Mom's foundation work expanded beyond supporting women in manufacturing to addressing broader educational inequities. She established STEM programs in underserved schools, creating pipelines of talent that would benefit not just Mitchell Manufacturing, but the entire industry. The most significant strategic decision involved our approach to intellectual property. As we developed new technologies for the DoD contract, we faced choices about patents and proprietary processes. Convention dictated keeping innovations secret to maintain competitive advantages. I chose a different path. We open-sourced certain non-sensitive technologies, particularly those related to worker safety and environmental efficiency. The decision shocked industry observers but reflected our deeper strategy. Knowledge hoarding might protect short-term profits, I explained at a technology conference, but knowledge sharing drives industry-wide progress. We're strong enough to compete on execution, not secrecy. The approach paid unexpected dividends. Other manufacturers adopted our safety innovations, reducing industry-wide injury rates. In gratitude, several companies shared their own improvements, creating a collaborative ecosystem that benefited everyone. 6 months into our expansion, we faced our first major test of the new strategy. A cyber attack targeted our systems, attempting to steal sensitive DoD-related data. Our enhanced security protocols, developed under Daniel's leadership, detected and neutralized the threat within minutes. Rather than hiding the incident, we immediately notified authorities and affected partners. We shared our security learnings with other defense contractors, helping them strengthen their own defenses. The transparency earned praise from the Pentagon and established new best practices for incident response. As our physical expansion neared completion, I focused on cementing our cultural transformation. We codified our values into formal policies, but more importantly, we wove them into daily operations. Every meeting began with a values check, ensuring decisions aligned with our principles. Performance reviews weighted ethical leadership as heavily as financial results. The culmination of our preparation phase came with the grand opening of the Mitchell Manufacturing Campus. The event drew national media, industry leaders, and government officials. As I stood before the assembled crowd, I saw more than buildings and machinery. I saw a manifestation of everything we'd fought to achieve. 18 months ago, Mitchell Manufacturing faced extinction. I began my speech. Today, we celebrate not just survival, but reimagination. This campus represents more than expanded capacity. It embodies our belief that business success and social responsibility are inseparable. I paused, scanning the faces of employees, family members, and community leaders who had made this moment possible. We've proven that ethical leadership isn't a constraint on growth, it's a catalyst for sustainable success. That investing in people yields greater returns than exploiting them. That transparency builds stronger foundations than secrecy. The campus tour showcased our integrated approach. Visitors saw state-of-the-art production lines alongside worker wellness centers. They explored research laboratories next to apprenticeship workshops. They witnessed how sustainable design reduced operating costs while improving employee satisfaction. General Williams attended, bringing senior Pentagon officials. After the tour, she pulled me aside with undisguised admiration. "Emily, you've exceeded every expectation," she said. "The DoD isn't just getting a supplier, we're getting a partner. In reimagining American manufacturing, I'm recommending Mitchell as a case study for all future defense contractors." As the celebration wound down, I found a quiet moment in my new office overlooking the campus. The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant hues, casting long shadows. Across the grounds where my grandfather had started with a single machine and a simple dream. Daniel joined me, now confident and purposeful in his role as Director of Workforce Development. "Remember when Dad said you'd never amount to anything in business?" he asked with a wry smile. I wonder what he'd say now. He'd say he was wrong, came Dad's voice from the doorway. He entered with Mom, both looking at the campus with unmistakable pride. And he'd admit that his greatest failure was not recognizing his greatest asset. Mom added softly, "We spent years trying to mold you into something you weren't, never seeing that you were already everything we should have valued." The moment crystallized our complete transformation, not just of a company, but of a family's understanding of success, leadership, and legacy. We had moved beyond mere reconciliation to create something entirely new, a shared vision that honored our past while embracing a bold future. As night fell and the campus lights illuminated our achievement, I understood that our preparation phase was complete. We had built more than facilities and systems. We had established a foundation for generational impact. The real work of fulfilling that potential lay ahead, but we were ready. The girl they'd called a failure had prepared the ground for a legacy that would outlast us all, and in doing so, she had redefined what success could mean in American business. The Mitchell Manufacturing Campus had been operational for 3 months when the first major test of our execution capabilities arrived. The Department of Defense accelerated their timeline, requesting delivery of critical components 6 months ahead of schedule. The request coincided with global supply chain disruptions that threatened to derail our entire production strategy. I assembled our crisis response team in the main conference room, where digital displays showed real-time updates from our suppliers worldwide. The situation was dire. A shipping crisis in the Pacific had stranded essential materials, labor disputes. In South America, threatened rare metal supplies, and semiconductor shortages were affecting every manufacturer globally. We have commitments to fulfill, I addressed the team, and our reputation depends on meeting them. Traditional solutions won't work here. We need to innovate our way out of this crisis. Margaret Chen presented the financial implications. Expedited shipping and alternative suppliers could increase costs by 40%. We'd be operating at a loss for this contract phase. Robert Hayes added grimly, even with unlimited budget, some materials simply aren't available through conventional channels. We're looking at potential production halts within weeks. The room fell silent as the magnitude of our challenge sank in. This wasn't just about one contract. Failure here could undermine everything we'd built. Our credibility with the DoD, our reputation for reliability, and our position as industry innovators all hung in the balance. Then we create new channels, I declared. If the old supply chains are broken, we'll build better ones. Over the next 72 hours, I orchestrated a radical reimagining of our procurement strategy. We established direct relationships with raw material producers, bypassing traditional intermediaries. I personally flew to Chile to negotiate. With mining operations, offering technology partnerships in exchange for priority access to critical minerals. Daniel revolutionized our logistics approach by implementing blockchain tracking for materials, creating transparency that allowed us to identify and redirect shipments in real time. His team developed algorithms that predicted disruptions before they occurred, enabling proactive responses rather than reactive scrambling. My father leveraged his old guard connections in unexpected ways. Former competitors, remembering his more collegial early years, agreed to temporary resource sharing arrangements. Your daughter's leadership has reminded us that we're all part of a larger American manufacturing ecosystem, one CEO told him. We succeed or fail together. The most innovative solution came from our workforce. During an emergency town hall, Maria Gonzalez suggested repurposing equipment from our legacy production lines to create temporary manufacturing capabilities for certain components. Her idea sparked a grassroots innovation movement, with employees across departments contributing creative solutions. Within 2 weeks, we had transformed our operations. The campus became a hive of adaptive manufacturing, with teams working around the clock to implement new processes. We cross-trained workers to handle multiple roles, creating flexibility that traditional manufacturers couldn't match. The breakthrough moment arrived when Sarah Martinez from HR proposed partnering with local technical schools to create pop-up training programs. Students gained real-world experience while providing surge capacity for our workforce. The program was so successful that it became a permanent feature of our operations model. As solutions emerged, I made a controversial decision. Rather than keeping our innovations proprietary, I shared our crisis management playbook with other defense contractors. The Pentagon noticed. General Williams called personally. Emily, your collaborative approach during this crisis has been remarkable. You're not just meeting your obligations, you're strengthening our entire defense industrial base. Her words carried weight beyond praise. 2 weeks later, the DoD announced a new initiative based on our model, the Defense Manufacturing Resilience Network. They appointed me to lead the steering committee, tasking us with creating industry-wide standards for supply chain resilience and collaborative crisis response. The appointment brought new challenges. Larger contractors, initially dismissive of our rapid rise, now felt threatened by our influence. Reynolds Industrial, our primary competitor, launched a campaign questioning our capabilities and suggesting favoritism in contract awards. Nathan Reynolds himself appeared on business news programs, barely concealing his disdain. Mitchell Manufacturing's success is a charming story, But let's not confuse narrative with capability. When national security is at stake, we need proven leaders, not feel-good experiments. Rather than responding defensively, I invited Reynolds to tour our facility. To everyone's surprise, he accepted. The visit became a masterclass in disarming criticism through transparency and excellence. As Reynolds walked our production floors, he encountered former Mitchell critics now championing our methods. Robert Hayes explained how our integrated systems prevented the errors that plagued traditional manufacturers. Daniel demonstrated security protocols that exceeded military specifications. Employee after employee shared stories of professional growth and innovative contributions. The turning point came in our research laboratory, where Reynolds witnessed a breakthrough in material science that our team had achieved through cross-disciplinary collaboration. The innovation promised to reduce aircraft component weight by 15% while increasing durability. "This is unexpected," Reynolds admitted privately. "I came here planning to expose weaknesses. Instead, I'm seeing the future of manufacturing." The visit ended with Reynolds publicly endorsing our leadership of the Resilience Network. His validation, coming from our harshest critic, silenced other skeptics and cemented our position as industry innovators. Meanwhile, our accelerated delivery schedule pushed our systems to their limits. I spent nights on the production floor, working alongside teams to troubleshoot problems in real time. The hands-on leadership style, initially adopted during our crisis period, had become integral to our culture. One midnight shift, I found myself working beside a young engineer named Jamie Chen, no relation to Margaret. Fresh from college, she had joined during our expansion and quickly proved herself invaluable. "Ms. Mitchell," she said during a brief break, "can I ask you something? Why do you still work these shifts? You're the CEO. You don't have to be here." I smiled, remembering similar questions I'd once asked my grandfather. "Leadership isn't about what you have to do, Jamie. It's about what you choose to do. Every hour I spend here shows our team that no one is above the work that needs doing." The conversation sparked an idea. We formalized a leadership rotation program where executives regularly worked frontline positions. The initiative broke down hierarchical barriers and generated insights that improved operations across all levels. As our delivery deadline approached, a final obstacle emerged. Quality testing revealed microscopic imperfections in certain components, not enough to fail specifications, but below our internal standards. We faced a choice: ship products that met contractual requirements or delay delivery to achieve our own higher benchmarks. The decision tormented me. Shipping on time would fulfill our obligations and protect our reputation for reliability. Delaying would risk penalties and damage relationships, but would uphold our commitment to excellence. I convened our ethics board, including external members we'd appointed to ensure unbiased oversight. After hours of deliberation, we reached a unanimous decision. Excellence trumped expediency. I personally called General Williams to explain the delay. "General, we can meet your specifications today, or we can exceed them next week. I believe our relationship is built on trust, not just contracts. I'm asking for that trust now." Her response surprised me. "Emily, this is exactly why we chose Mitchell. Your integrity in this moment validates every decision to partner with you. Take the time you need."
James nodded, cutting the engine. "Go ahead. I need to make a few more calls anyway." Lily was out of the truck almost before it stopped completely, her pace quickening as she approached the barn. The familiar scent of hay and horses greeted her as she pulled open the door, her eyes immediately seeking the stall at the far end. Sundance stood alert, his golden coat catching the late afternoon sunlight streaming through the high windows. At the sight of Lily, he nickered softly, that special greeting that seemed reserved for her alone, and moved toward the stall door, with noticeably improved mobility. "You're walking better," Lily exclaimed, joy bubbling up inside her. "Dr. Gonzalez was right. You're healing." As she entered the stall, Sundance lowered his proud head to her level, his soft muzzle gently nuzzling her shoulder in greeting. The gesture, so trusting and affectionate from an animal that had never known human touch before her intervention, filled Lily with renewed determination. "I'm going to help you," she promised, wrapping her arms gently around his powerful neck. "And not just you, all your wild family too. I don't know exactly how yet, but I'm learning, and I won't give up." Sundance's response was to stand perfectly still, accepting her embrace with a patience that defied his wild nature. In that peaceful moment, with the afternoon sun creating a golden halo around them both, Lily felt a certainty beyond her 8 years. Her chance encounter with this magnificent creature hadn't been mere coincidence. It was a calling, a responsibility she had been uniquely prepared to accept. What she couldn't possibly know, as she stood in communion with the injured Mustang, was that her innocent commitment was about to catalyze events that would transform not just Sundance's fate, but the future of wild horses throughout the region, and that her small, determined voice would soon be heard far beyond the boundaries of Pinewood Ridge. The Gonzalez family home stood in stark contrast to the surrounding properties of Pinewood Ridge. While most residents lived on sprawling ranches or modest bungalows, with traditional styling, Dr. Gonzalez had built a contemporary structure of wood, stone, and glass that nestled into the hillside overlooking the valley. The unusual architecture reflected Miguel Gonzalez's background, born in Arizona to a family that had lived in the borderlands for generations, educated in California, and eventually drawn to Montana's open spaces to establish his veterinary practice. Lily gazed up at the house with undisguised admiration as her father pulled up to the circular driveway. "It's like something from a magazine," she murmured, taking in the large windows that seemed to bring the outside landscape into the living spaces. "Dr. Gonzalez designed it himself," James explained as he put the truck in park. "Caused quite a stir when they first built it, but people have gotten used to it over the years." A familiar face appeared at the front door, Mia, waving enthusiastically to signal their arrival. Behind her stood her father, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners as he greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome, Chapmans," Dr. Gonzalez called out. Come in, come in. Maria just pulled fresh empanadas from the oven." The interior of the home was as impressive as its exterior. Open and airy with natural materials throughout, the walls adorned with a fascinating combination of traditional southwestern art and local Montana landscapes. Mrs. Gonzalez, a biology professor who taught at the community college in the next county, emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. "James, Lily, how wonderful to see you." She greeted them warmly. "It's been too long since we've had you over." As the adults exchanged pleasantries, Mia tugged at Lily's sleeve. "Come on, I want to show you something before we talk to my dad." The girls slipped away to Mia's bedroom, a colorful space filled with books, science posters, and a collection of animal figurines meticulously arranged on floating shelves. "Look," Mia said, pulling a large book from her desk. "My dad gave me this when I told him you were interested in wild horses. It's full of amazing photographs and information." The book, America's Wild Horses, Living Symbols of the West, featured breathtaking images of mustangs in various habitats throughout the western states. Lily's fingers traced reverently over a photograph of a golden stallion remarkably similar to Sundance, standing proudly atop a mesa with his mane blowing in the wind. "They're so beautiful," she whispered, emotion tightening her throat. "The best part is the author," Mia pointed out, flipping to the About page at the back. "Elena Vasquez. She's coming to speak at the county library this weekend. My mom knows her from college, and she's staying at our house." Lily looked up in astonishment. "The person who wrote this book is coming here to Pinewood Ridge."
In our rush to meet deadlines, we'd approved an alternate alloy that met specifications on paper but behaved differently under extreme conditions. The discovery hit me hard. Our innovative solution to the supply chain challenge had created an unforeseen vulnerability. Critics would argue that our rapid growth and unconventional methods had finally caught up with us. As media scrutiny intensified, I made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of limiting access, I invited journalists to witness our response in real time. Cameras documented our round-the-clock efforts to identify affected components, develop solutions, and implement corrective measures. Nathan Reynolds appeared on national news, but instead of criticizing, he defended us. What we're seeing is unprecedented accountability. Mitchell Manufacturing isn't hiding behind lawyers or PR firms. They're showing us exactly how a responsible company responds to crisis. The turning point came on day 4. Jamie's team discovered that the flaw could be detected using a novel ultrasonic technique they'd developed in-house. We could identify affected components without dismantling entire systems. More importantly, our research lab had created a retrofit solution that could be applied in the field. I personally presented our findings to the Pentagon. We've identified 847 affected components across 200 systems, I reported. Our field teams can complete retrofits within 2 weeks. We'll absorb all costs, estimated at $50 million, and implement enhanced testing protocols that exceed any current industry standard. The room was silent as officials absorbed the information. Then General Williams spoke. You're proposing to spend $50 million to fix a problem that technically meets contractual specifications. I'm proposing to spend whatever it takes to ensure the safety of the people who defend our country, I replied. This isn't about contracts. It's about integrity. The decision sparked intense debate within our own ranks. Some board members argued that accepting full responsibility for a supplier's error set a dangerous precedent. Others worried about the financial impact on our expansion plans. I addressed these concerns at an emergency board meeting. 18 months ago, we made a commitment to redefine manufacturing excellence. That commitment isn't tested when things go right. It's tested in moments like this. If we compromise our principles now, everything we've built becomes hollow. Catherine Walsh stood up. I move that we support Emily's decision without reservation. This is exactly the kind of leadership that will secure our long-term success. The vote was unanimous. Our response became a case study in crisis management. We completed retrofits ahead of schedule, shared our enhanced testing protocols with the entire industry, and established a $10 million fund for advancing safety research in aerospace manufacturing. The financial hit was substantial, but the reputational gain was incalculable. Military procurement officers praised our integrity. Competitors adopted our safety standards. Most surprisingly, our stock price rose as investors recognized that ethical leadership created sustainable value. 3 months after the crisis, we received an unexpected visit from the Secretary of Defense. Standing in our main production facility, surrounded by workers who had labored tirelessly through the crisis, she made an announcement that stunned everyone. The Department of Defense is awarding Mitchell Manufacturing the Contract of Excellence, our highest recognition for supplier integrity. Furthermore, we're designating Mitchell as the primary contractor for the next generation of defense manufacturing systems, a program valued at $2 billion over 10 years. The room erupted in cheers, but I felt something deeper than triumph. We had faced our greatest test not by abandoning our principles, but by embracing them more fully. The crisis had revealed the true strength of our transformation. That evening, as celebrations continued throughout the campus, I found quiet moments with key team members. Jamie Chen, whose innovation had saved countless lives, was promoted to Chief Technology Officer. Daniel, who had coordinated the crisis response with remarkable skill, became Executive Vice President of Operations. My parents approached me together, their pride evident. You turned our greatest threat into our defining moment, Dad said. I spent years teaching you about business, never realizing you understood something far more important: leadership. Mom added, we always worried you were too idealistic for the business world. Now we see that your idealism is exactly what the business world needs. Later that night, alone in my office, I reviewed the journey that had brought us here. From the humiliation of being called a failure to the triumph of industry leadership, each challenge had strengthened our resolve and clarified our purpose. The girl they had dismissed as naive had proven that principles and profits weren't mutually exclusive. The company they had nearly destroyed through complacency had become a beacon of innovation and integrity. The family torn apart by prejudice and misunderstanding had found unity in shared purpose. As I prepared to leave, my phone buzzed with a message from General Williams. Your grandfather would be proud. You didn't just save his company, you elevated his legacy beyond anything he could have imagined. I looked out over the campus, now quiet under starlight, and whispered a truth that had taken years to fully understand. Success isn't measured by the absence of failure, but by the courage to face it with integrity. The ultimate test had revealed our true character. We emerged not just stronger, but transformed, ready to lead American manufacturing into a new era where excellence and ethics were inseparable. The real victory wasn't the contract or the recognition. It was proving that doing right was always good business, that transparency created trust, and that a leader's true strength lay not in avoiding mistakes but in taking responsibility for them. As I locked my office door, I smiled at the irony. The failure they had predicted had become the foundation of unprecedented success. And in facing our darkest moment with unwavering principle, we had illuminated a path forward for an entire industry. The morning of December 15th began like any other at Mitchell Manufacturing, but by noon, we faced a crisis that would define our company's legacy. I was reviewing quarterly projections when Margaret Chen burst into my office, her face ashen. Emily, we have a situation, she said, struggling to maintain composure. There's been an accident at the Eastwood facility, a critical component failure in one of our shipped defense systems. No casualties, but the entire fleet is being grounded. Pending investigation. My blood ran cold. The Eastwood facility produced specialized guidance systems for military aircraft, our most sensitive and crucial contract. A failure of this magnitude could destroy everything we'd built. Get the crisis team assembled, I ordered, already. Moving toward the door. I want every department head in the situation room in 15 minutes. And Margaret, not a word to anyone outside this building until we know exactly what we're dealing with. The situation room filled quickly with grim-faced executives. Robert Hayes pulled up technical schematics while Daniel coordinated with our security teams. The preliminary report was devastating. A microscopic flaw in a critical alloy had caused a cascade failure during high-stress testing. The defect was present in an entire production batch already delivered to the military. How did this pass our quality control? I demanded, fighting to keep my voice steady. Jamie Chen, now our lead quality engineer, stepped forward. The flaw is virtually undetectable with standard testing. It only manifests under specific stress conditions that weren't part of our original test protocols. General Williams joined via secure video conference, her expression severe. Emily, I don't need to tell you how serious this is. We're talking about potential risks to national security and pilot safety. The investigation team arrives in 2 hours. Full cooperation is expected. You'll have it, General, I assured her. We'll find the cause and fix it. As the call ended, the weight of responsibility threatened to overwhelm me. This wasn't just about contracts or reputation. Lives could be at stake. The room fell silent, everyone looking to me for direction. Listen carefully, I began, drawing on every lesson learned over the past 2 years. We have 2 priorities: finding the root cause and protecting our people. I want 3 teams working simultaneously. Team 1, led by Robert, will conduct technical analysis. Team 2, under Daniel, will review our entire supply chain and production process. Team 3, with Jamie, will develop enhanced testing protocols. My father, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. What about the media? This will leak within hours. We control the narrative by leading with truth, I replied. Sarah, prepare a statement acknowledging the issue and outlining our response. Full transparency, no spin, no deflection. The next 72 hours tested every principle we'd established. The investigation revealed that the flaw originated from a supplier substitution made during our supply chain crisis. In our rush to meet deadlines, we'd approved an alternate alloy that met specifications on paper, but behaved differently under extreme conditions. The discovery hit me hard. Our innovative solution to the supply chain challenge had created an unforeseen vulnerability. Critics would argue that our rapid growth and unconventional methods had finally caught up with us. As media scrutiny intensified, I made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of limiting access, I invited journalists to witness our response in real time. Cameras documented our round-the-clock efforts to identify affected components, develop solutions, and implement corrective measures. Nathan Reynolds appeared on national news, but instead of criticizing, he defended us. What we're seeing is unprecedented accountability. Mitchell Manufacturing isn't hiding behind lawyers or PR firms. They're showing us exactly how a responsible company responds to crisis. The turning point came on day 4. Jamie's team discovered that the flaw could be detected using a novel ultrasonic technique they'd developed in-house. We could identify affected components without dismantling entire systems. More importantly, our research lab had created a retrofit solution that could be applied in the field. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.